Here's what's coming up on your horizon. Well, rather than our usual look forward, today we take a look back for our year in review. We begin our show with some of the big stories that had an impact on our economy.
2014 overall was a very good year for Oklahoma.
I sit down with Oklahoma's Secretary of Commerce before he leaves office at the end of the year.
Superman had superpowers, Captain Marvel had superpowers, all of them had superpowers except Batman. Batman became super by choice.
Andy Barth introduces us to a young lady who's making it work after surviving life's struggles.
No matter what your past is, there's always a chance to make yourself better and make your life better. And just don't ever give up.
And we end our day with a little Christmas cheer from the FFA. Stay with us for Oklahoma Horizon.
Oklahoma Horizon is made possible by the Oklahoma Department of Career and Technology Education.
Oklahoma's investment in career tech provides more than nationally recognized technology education and training. It produces solid financial returns for the state's economic future. Oklahoma Career Tech, elevating our economy.
And the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping good people grow good things. And now, from the Career Tech Studios in Stillwater, here's your host, Rob McClendon.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on Horizon. So where does the time go? 2014 was a year filled with events, but it is our economy that's our focus today, and where we begin with our look back on 2014. Well, for most of America, 2014 was the year economic recovery began to take hold. Despite a wintry contraction at the beginning of the year, the economy grew at an annual rate of over 3%. Chad Wilkerson heads the Oklahoma City branch of the Federal Reserve Bank.
The U.S. has fared very well, especially in the last 6 to 8 months. We started out the year very slow with the bad weather across most of the country, but the numbers in the second and third quarter were very strong, and the preliminary numbers for the fourth quarter have also been solid. Oklahoma has also done quite well, especially in Oklahoma City, but the state as a whole has grown rapidly so far.
Altogether, America's employers added more than 2.5 million jobs in 2014, the most created in over 8 years, a trend that Deidre Myers with Oklahoma's Department of Commerce says has been especially good for Oklahoma workers.
2014 overall was a very good year for Oklahoma. Our unemployment rate remained below 5%, so that meant households in Oklahoma had a very good year. Wage rates look like they will continue to increase. We had very low or moderate inflation compared to other hot economies. However, we still have the exogenous or external pressures from the national economy and more of the international malaise that still seems to be out there that is always of concern for Oklahoma.
A generally sunny picture that wasn't without its dark clouds, even if those clouds didn't contain much rain. Jim Reese is Oklahoma's Secretary of Agriculture.
2014 was it was horrible for wheat, one of the worst wheat crops in history. Because we didn't get any rain until May. Agriculture is always just basically contingent upon rainfall. So we didn't have much until May. June and July were really good for most of the state. And so after the wheat crops, some people have recovered with a really good summer crop. Some may not have.
But smaller crops typically mean higher prices. And no one knows that more than beef producers, who are enjoying record highs.
Gross income from agriculture will still be good, still be positive, despite the fact that we had a horrible wheat crop, because we had good summer crops, we had good grass, good hay. So all in all, it's been a good year.
And those same laws of supply and demand are also impacting Oklahoma's top industry. Oil prices have slid by almost 40% in the past few months, in part to a sluggish world economy which is just consuming less than anticipated. Energy analyst Jamie Webster.
When you've got slower demand growth, that means you need less oil in the world, but the U.S. is still producing quite a bit, which means that you could end up having a significant price drop. And while that always sounds great from a consumer standpoint, I'm always well aware of the long-term marginal cost, meaning the long-term price that companies need to both incentivize them to keep investing so that you can keep production up. Because if you end up seeing a significant price drop, what that means, or what it should mean and trigger in people's mind, is that I am going to have to pay for this drop with a much higher price at some point in the future.
And while cheaper oil could save the typical American motorist about $800 annually, for states like Oklahoma, whose energy roots run deep, a dip in prices could be felt all across the state.
It has been the single biggest factor in terms of the growth that we've seen since the recession. And this is a benefit that has extended across income levels, and both for companies and individuals and a whole host of different industries that are connected to it. So it's people that are working in the 7-Eleven that are supporting the oil workers in a particular province. It's also the royalty owners. The U.S. is unique in that landowners end up owning the mineral rights, and so they can actually receive funds from the oil producers, because if they end up contracting to allow them to drill on their land. So there's just this nice kind of virtuous cycle where a lot of people are able to participate in this big boom.
And while Oklahoma's economy has outperformed the nation in recent years, if the downturn in energy prices lasts from a year to 18 months, as many predict, that undoubtedly would cool what's been a red-hot economy. Well, Devon Energy Corporation CEO John Rochelle says he will step down at the end of July next year. Rochelle has been president of Devon since 2004 and named CEO in 2010. Now, originally from Canada, Rochelle's gained his American citizenship last year and says his plans are to remain in the state. Now, when we return, my conversation with Oklahoma's Secretary of Commerce, who says the state could take some lessons from a certain superhero.
I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
You're watching Oklahoma Horizon, featuring some of the good things that are happening in the great state of Oklahoma.
Well, Oklahoma Secretary of Commerce Larry Parman is stepping down at the end of the year. During his tenure, Parman helped bring thousands of jobs into the state from internationally known companies like Boeing and Macy's. Earlier, I was able to sit down with the Secretary to talk about our economy and why he believes it has a lot in common with Batman. Well, Mr. Secretary, I've heard you describe Oklahoma in terms of superheroes as the Batman of superheroes. Please explain.
Well, I came across this idea by reading a marketing letter produced by a good friend of mine, and he was talking about superheroes, and he was talking about one in particular in the context of a marketing story. And the superhero he was talking about was Batman. And he made the point that Batman was a superhero, the only one who had no superpowers. Superman had superpowers, Captain Marvel had superpowers, all of them had superpowers except Batman. Batman became super by choice. Yet when Batman tackled villains and enemies and tried to rid Gotham of crime, he took on villains that actually possessed superpowers. None of those others did. So he was extraordinary in that way, and I think all of us have been entertained by, interested in Batman and that story and so forth, but we've never really been led by or informed by that principle, and the principle is one of choice. He made a decision after watching his parents killed to rid Gotham of crime. And likewise, Oklahoma battles superpower states all the time in the economic development arena. So we have states that have oceans, beaches, beachfront property, Rocky Mountains, Great Lakes, so on and so forth. And it's hard to compete against them. It's hard to compete against states that have multi-million-dollar advertising budgets for television, radio, internet, magazine, newspaper, and so forth. It's hard to compete against states that have hundreds of millions of dollars in the closing fund. So Oklahoma is not a super state. We have no superpowers. We have to create competitive advantage through policies, practices, and programs. And so that's what our focus has been.
So give me some examples of where we do increase our strengths. You said policies and programs?
For example, on the policy side, and let me start with what does not seem to be working. There are many states out there that view business as the enemy. They view business as the ability to tax that business's income as the solution for their unwillingness or inability to have good policies in place. So the high tax states tend to look at that evil 1%, you know, that employee, that successful business, as the source to remedy and correct all the policy problems or mistakes that they have. Oklahoma, by contrast, has tried to create a series of policies that help those businesses grow and thrive. It started in 2001 with right to work, 2009 with tort reform, lawsuit reform, last year with workers' compensation reform. We continue to work on the income tax issue and keep those rates competitive, improving our education system and tackling the pension problem. You know, if you don't tackle the pension problem, that will eventually cause a state to go bankrupt.
And in particular, the state pension problem and the lower ratings we may have due to the state pension problem.
The unfunded liabilities and getting that fixed. So those are six legs to an economic development stool that I think, that I know, Oklahoma has a strong message to tell.
Let's talk about workforce. What role does that play in trying to attract industry or grow industry here in the state?
Every state has workforce problems. It seems to have gone to the top of the list over the past number of years, and I think the reason for that is because the business community has changed much quicker. Productivity, technology has moved the business community's platform of operation much off dead center. The education community is not quite caught up. And by not being caught up, I mean businesses tell us that workforce preparation capability is not where it needs to be. In Oklahoma, I'm not so sure we do have a capability problem because everyone does. To deny it would not be fair. But we also have a workforce availability problem. I mean, our unemployment rate's so low, we're doing so well that it creates a constraint of a different kind. So we just want to be sure that we're creating not only workforce capability, but we also want to be sure we're creating the policies that attract more people to come to the state. But it's at the top of the list. Well, it starts with awareness. And I have to applaud Governor Mary Fallin because in her 1 year as chairman of the National Governors Association, she elevated that issue for all states to think about through her initiative called America Works. And America Works talks about preparing and aligning workforce capability and needs. And so that's part of that initiative. We're going to carry that further back. We're going to bring that back home in a program called Oklahoma Works. And so the question I think for us will be, how do we strike that balance between putting resources? Do we need more resources in higher ed? Do we need more resources right now in career tech? Where do we need the resources? How are we going to make those allocations? We'll leave that debate up to the elected officials, but we seem to have a need to get more people beyond high school. Not everyone needs a 4-year degree, nor desires a 4-year degree. We want to be sure that we do not lose those people who choose not to pursue a 4-year degree. We don't want them underemployed. If we can get them a certificate, get them to an associate's degree, get them through career tech, and give them capability to go out into the marketplace and immediately pick up a $50,000 to $80,000 a year job. We have to help those people.
In many ways, you are our state's chief salesperson around the country.
I think the governor's the chief salesperson.
Well,
I just try to help her.
Okay, I will definitely accept that answer. When you're out with the governor promoting the state to C-level executives, to decision makers, what are some of the obstacles that you face?
Well, it depends. Every deal is different. Every deal seems to have its own DNA. It's hard for me to understand exactly what goes on behind the curtain in those companies in terms of what they're really looking at. Site selectors are very coy about not being, you know, they're not that forthcoming in terms of telling you what the magic formula might be. But you have to answer a number of questions. I mean, for some deals, the transportation distance is important. Google was attracted to our state because we had the trifecta. We had available sites, we had water availability, and we had cheap energy. So a lot of states could not provide that, even though they tried. So every deal is a little bit different. And what I'm finding is that companies are very well informed about what the capabilities and opportunities are within each of these states. What I'm trying to get them to think about more is the policies that we have in place, and I'm challenging people a little bit, and I'm willing to have the discussion by saying, are you kidding me? You really want to be the victim of a high tax state? And you really want, I mean, what are your chances for success? And how's that going to impact your bottom line profitability if you locate in a state that cannot correct its problems and they look to you to provide the solution? To me, that doesn't make sense. So I just want to be sure that companies don't make a 50-year mistake by not looking at Oklahoma because they don't have the information about Oklahoma. That gets back to the awareness issue that we've talked about before. Have to make them aware of what we have.
Well, no one, including the state of Oklahoma, can be all things to all people, but we do have certain strengths here in the state that are referred to by the Department of Commerce as ecosystems. We also hear them called clusters. What are those?
You know, I think that's a very important concept. I mean, you can't be everything to everyone. We're pretty clear about our strengths and what we do well. So the 5 are, first of all, energy, aerospace, 3rd, bioscience and agriculture, 4th, transportation and distribution, and then finally, financial services and information. In those ecosystems, we compete very well. In my view, every company that falls within one of those ecosystems should be in our state. I mean, we just have the right combination of people, energy, land, capabilities to do very well in those systems. So those are the ones that we promote first. And I want to be clear that if you're a company that's not necessarily in one of those ecosystems, it's not that we don't invite you, it's not that we don't welcome you, it's not that we're not going to do everything that we can to help you grow, but we know what we do well. And those 5 ecosystems fit the bill for us.
If you were given the magic wand at the Department of Commerce, what would be the first thing that you would like to be able to do for the state?
I don't like to be put in a position where I have to constantly be asking for money. I may be a little bit different as an agency director in that respect because I believe that we should minimize the presence of government in our economy and not maximize it. So I'm not inclined to be asking for more and more money, but I do know that if we had a budget where we could market the state more aggressively and change our branding and deliver our message more effectively, it would help move the needle. It would put us on a different level. All these states that have these big budgets, you and I both know, television is still the most powerful way to deliver a message. If we could compete in that arena, it would be fabulous. And I'm hoping that the legislature will agree with that and give us some money and afford us that opportunity.
Well, we certainly will look forward to what the legislature does. Secretary Parman, thank you so much.
Thanks. Good to be here, Rob.
Still to come on Oklahoma Horizon. Holiday lights with a message. But first, making it work.
Well, for 20 years, the Oklahoma Career and Technical Educators Equity Council has held an event at the Capitol recognizing Oklahomans who turn their lives around. It's called Making It Work Day, and our Andy Barth was there as a particular Oklahoman was recognized for overcoming the odds.
Well, Rob, April Ibarra's life was on the fast track to destruction, from trouble with the law to not being able to make ends meet for her 2 kids and herself. April knew she had to make a change, and she found it at a small town tech center in western Oklahoma.
It's a celebration of achievement. Outstanding students who don't have an outstanding past.
Thank you to God.
And for non-traditional student April Ibarra, this is a special milestone.
It means a lot. I've come a long ways. I've accomplished a lot this year, a lot more than I ever thought I would.
Yet Ibarra's life hasn't always been easy.
Been in trouble. I have 2 kids, and I've been through divorce and multiple things. There's a lot of stuff.
But that all changed when her car broke down.
I have a car that's like a piece of junk.
Motivating her to join the automotive program at Chisholm Trail Technology Center. And being the only girl, her classmates didn't take her seriously.
It's kind of hard because every man wants to argue with you and doesn't believe anything that you know what you're talking about.
Well, not every man. Ibarra's instructor Mike Lopez believes in her and says her classmates now look up to her too.
The premise in my classroom, I guess, is exhaust all your resources before you come to me. Well, instead of them coming to me, they go to April.
And April says her instructor helped get her life back in order.
He's funny, and he's taught me a lot. I've learned a lot. I didn't know anything about cars or anything when I came into this class, and I've learned quite a bit. It's surprising how much I've learned.
It's a bond that goes beyond student and teacher, but rather friends helping each other through the struggles of life.
When she walked through the door, I told her she was going to be my poster child because she's my first female student that I had, period, whether it was high school or adult.
And for Lopez, he sees Ibarra going far.
These ain't the right size. She's got a solid work ethic. I have no problem getting any work done from her.
Work that Ibarra says hopefully will improve her financial situation.
Hopefully doing good where I don't have to struggle so much and, maybe have a really good high-paying job.
Unfortunately.
And Lopez says having April in class improves his life as well.
And you'll have a heavy part of the tire. I'm extremely proud of her. She makes me a better person, and because of that, I can do nothing but appreciate having her around.
And while April struggled in her life, she looks to the future for a better outcome.
No matter what your past is, there's always a chance to make yourself better and make your life better. And just don't ever give up.
Well, now, since we met with Ibarra, she graduated from the program and is currently working at Frontier Dodge in El Reno as an automotive technician.
Well, certainly exciting news for April, but I also understand there are other people recognized at the event.
That's right, Rob. Aside from the student recognition, companies, administrators, and instructors are all recognized for the support of the program and the students as well.
All right, great program. Thanks so much, Andy.
You're welcome, Rob.
Want to share something you've seen here today? Well, all of our episodes are streaming on our YouTube channel at Oklahoma Horizon TV. Or you can subscribe to our weekly free podcasts on iTunes. Well, there are typically no shortage of holiday lights this time of year that can range from the elaborate to the gaudy. Our Austin Moore caught up with some members of the FFA who are using some of their welding skills to make a unique display in front of Oklahoma's Department of Agriculture.
Okay, now remember, these are a little bit.
Secretary Reese several years ago said, it's Christmas time, it's a holiday time, and we want to remind people about our farmers and ranchers and what they do to provide food for us throughout the year. And so wouldn't it be great if we had some Christmas decorations or some lights kind of highlighting our farmers and ranchers? So we had the first chapter that brought a project was the Stillwater FFA chapter, and then the Morrison FFA group brought lights last year to kind of add to what we already have, and then this year Carl Albert is setting up their lights.
What we created was out of rebar, we bent and welded pieces to look like a farmer that is gardening, and then 3 corn, 3 tomato plants, and some young vegetation, and a basket where he's collected the fruits of his labor.
It rained recently.
We have lots of folks that either say, where did you get those lights? I want to buy some. I want to have some for my front yard. Tell us about how the chapter did that, where these students, go into the workforce. And so it kind of exemplifies some of our youth programs here in Oklahoma. You're learning skills that then maybe turns into a profession or an employment opportunity or entrepreneurship type programs for the FFA members.
We just want to make good relations with the community about agriculture and try to be a little informative as well as seasonal and kind of celebrate the holiday season.
We'll put the stakes completely in the ground.
It's a great kind of collaboration between the agency, between the FFA chapters to educate all of these consumers as they drive up and down Lincoln about a little bit about agriculture during Christmas time.
You can keep up with us throughout the week. Just head to okhorizon.com where you can see more of any of our stories, read our reporters behind the scenes blogs, see what others are saying about us on Twitter, and face the facts with our regular updates. So reach out and touch us anywhere and anytime. Next time on Oklahoma Horizon, we end our year with a little holiday cheer, courtesy of some of our favorite homegrown musical artists.
If I ever get back to Oklahoma, gonna nail my feet to the ground. Too many stones in my path.
Enjoying our musical roots on Oklahoma Show for the Heartland, Oklahoma Horizon. Well, that is going to wrap us up for today, but you can see more of any of our stories on our website at okhorizon.com. You can listen to us on the go with our weekly podcast on iTunes. Follow us throughout the week on Twitter at OK Horizon TV, or just become a Horizon fan on Facebook. I'm Rob McClendon. Thanks for watching. Have a very Merry Christmas.
Horizon is made possible by the Oklahoma Department of Career and Technology Education and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping good people grow good things. Thank you for watching Oklahoma Horizon.